Hello and welcome to the Arab Open University Faculty of Language Studies, the English Department, course EL121, the short story and essay writing, and I'm your tutor, Mr. Samih Abdul Jalil. Welcome to session 2 of the series of sessions on the short story. Today's session coincides with and corresponds to Unit 2 in your book. The title of Unit 2 in your book is Focus on Setting, and focus we will on setting today. Let me start this section on the setting by first of all share with you some of the objectives of the unit, and then I'll tell you how I intend to approach the material. Obviously we have lots of things to do today. I'm going to tell you or share with you how I intend to cover them. First of all, let's move to the objectives of the unit like we always do. If you have the book handy with you, it's on page 23. If you go all the way to page 23, you will have the objectives of the unit. Let me read them out to you. So the objectives of, again, this is page 23 like I told you. The objectives of unit 2 are to introduce you to the concept of setting in a short story, the concept of setting, describe the different functions and roles of the setting, and then explore the role of setting in 2 short stories. We have 2 short stories today. We have To Build a Fire by Jack London and A Sound of Thunder by Ray Bradbury, and finally we'll help you examine how setting contributes to the meaning, to the overall meaning of the short story. These are the objectives of the unit. Let's start right away. I need to, like I promised you, we're going to divide this session into 3 parts or segments. The first part will furnish or provide the background, the theoretical background of the unit, where the setting will be highlighting what the setting means, its different roles and functions, and how it is created. And then we're going to move to the second section or segment, where we're going to have a short story, one of the short stories. And the short story that we have in the second part is going to be To Build a Fire by Jack London, where the place aspect of the setting is foregrounded and focused upon. And then we move to the third section, which is also featuring another short story, A Sound of Thunder by Ray Bradbury. And in this short story we are going to see together how the time aspect of the setting is highlighted and foregrounded. Okay, let's move to the unit proper and start our discussions. And I would like to start our discussions of the setting by referring to Eudora Welty's excellent and revealing quotation on setting. According to Welty, and of course you know that Eudora Welty is a very famous American short story writer, and she has something interesting to share with us about the setting. Welty is saying, let me first of all read the quotation, and then we are going to unpack and talk about it, and unpack it and talk about it later. She's saying that every story would be another story and unrecognizable if it took up its characters and plot and happened somewhere else. Fiction depends for its life on place. Place is the crossroads of circumstance, the proving ground of what happened, who's here and who's coming. Okay, when you reflect on this quotation, you're going to find that Eudora Welty is saying that there is no way you can separate the setting of a given short story from this short story. There is no way you can take off the setting of a certain that was intended for a certain short story and apply it and implement it in another short story. She's saying that this is not possible, and the resulting short story in either cases would be distorted. And she's not saying distorted, she's saying unrecognizable, which is another way of saying that the end of result, whether in the formal short story or the latter one, it's going to be a distorted version of the short story that the writer has intended. Again, she is focusing, or she's highlighting the centrality of the theme, the setting, the fact that the setting with its, I mean, she's here referring to the place aspect of the setting. She's saying that the setting is very, very important, and we all happen to agree with her. The setting is all important in furthering the action of a short story. So in very simple terms, the setting is the time and place of a short story. The time and place of a short story is the time and place of the action in a short story is what we name or refer to as setting. Obviously, there is more to the setting than just time and space, like we said. Setting not only tells where and when something happens, you also have to have your eyes set on how the action is revealed. And by how we mean you have circumstances, you have moods that you have to consider while dealing with the setting. For example, like I told you, if you have a setting that is, I mean, the scenes are shot or set in the middle of a war, it's going to be more or less different from when you have a setting in the middle of a circus act. The mood is going to be different, and it's going to affect our interpretation of the short story. And some short story setting is merely the background against which the events take place. In other short story setting assumes and plays and takes on a very central role. It does a number of things. It can make things happen, it can force characters to act, and it can also uncover and reveal truth about the inner nature of characters. You see how important the setting is. Sometimes a setting is described realistically with and in detail, and almost as if you are looking at a picture or a painting. Okay. Some other times the setting is portrayed or is given impressionistically. Impressionistically means that you have like clues and symbols, and when you put them together you can come up with a conclusion. It's not as realistic as the former one. It's not very realistic. It's not. Okay. So when you consider the setting of a story or scene in it, you should be paying attention to where the story is taking place, when the story is taking place, how the story is taking place, and this is the atmosphere and moods, and finally the circumstances under which the setting is taking place. Okay, let me now give you examples. I'm going to focus my attention now on how the setting is created. Like we said, and like we have agreed, you have either realistic portrayal and realistic creation of the setting, or impressionistic creation and making of the setting. And we have an example. If you go all the way to page 25, you have an example. I'm not going to tell you what kind of setting we have in terms of creation. I want you to come up with the conclusion yourself. It's page 25. The short story is Souls Belated by Willa Cather, and we have like some kind of introduction. I'm going to read it out and then see what kind of setting is it. Is it the realistic or the impressionistic one? And it goes as follows. The railway carriage had been full when the train left Bologna, but at the first station beyond Milan, their only remaining companion, a courtly person who ate garlic out of a carpet bag, had left his crumb-strewn seat with a bow. If you look at the this is you have details, you have minute details about. So you know, for example, that we have it's a train that is heading obviously north. Okay, and you come to know that there were lots of like passengers, but over the course of the journey, people started to go off, and the only remaining passenger is a person, or is a man who is referred to as a courtly person, who he was eating garlic, and he was leaving like crumbs. I mean, his seat is full of. Okay, for this you have realistic details. You have even minute details. It is true that we don't know how many people were there, or that. I mean, this is typical of life. You cannot, on a train, especially on a train or any means of transportation, you don't know about what happens to people. I mean, the short story normally focuses on one or two persons. Again, it's according to me. If you're going to ask me, it has the two elements in it. You have realistic description, and you also have impressionistic details in it. The impressionist and the realistic details to it, the fact that you have, which makes it realistic. I mean, the fact that you have a train, which is typical of cities and stuff like that. You have names of cities that you can identify with. I mean, you know that there is a place called Bologna. Okay, Milan is also there. Okay, and even what the guy is doing is very realistic. I mean, the fact that he eats something that we all eat, garlic, though we don't eat it like he did. Obviously, there is a streak of irony to it, and then it's a typical situation. You see, some of the impressions that we can get, that the writer is helping us get, is the fact that the guy is eating garlic, which is something that we don't normally eat among lots of people. If you would like to eat garlic, garlic has this. It has a smell that is not very well received, as it were. I mean, we don't really appreciate people eating garlic in public places. You can eat it all you like back home, but when it comes to and in front of people, it's very smelly, and it's. So the idea that this guy, there is a streak of irony to it. The fact that you were describing him as courtly, which is when you talk about the associations of courtly, means that he is of noble blood. He is well mannered. He should have been raised in okay. And you're saying that you see how contrasted this, and this is normally what the irony is. I mean, you have this gap between what is and what should be. For example, what is the fact that the guy is eating garlic, and what should be is the fact that he shouldn't be eating garlic out in keeping with the fact that he is courtly. He belongs to the the elevated strata of society, as it were. So again, from that setting, from the description of the person, what he is doing, you can almost tell that there is some kind of cynicism, some kind of attack. You see, let's compare this to Willa Carter's story. To Stephen Crane's famous novel, The Red Badge of Courage. I would like to read this part again to you and see how it goes. The color passed reluctantly from the earth, and the retiring fogs revealed an army stretched out on the hills, resting. As the landscape changed from brown to green, the army awakened and began to tremble with eagerness at the noise of rumors. It cast its eyes upon the roads, which were growing from long troughs of liquid mud to proper thoroughfares. A river, amber tinted in the shadow of its bank, burned at the army's feet, and at night, when the stream had become of a sorrowful blackness, one could see across it the red eye-like gleam of hostile campfires set in the raw brows of distant hills. When you read, it is full of details, okay, but what is more than details is the associations and the suggestions that we have. You have colors, and normally whenever you have colors in a paragraph, you need to think of the associations of colors. Sometimes you have set association of, if you talk about green, you talk about new beginnings, you talk about rebirth and all these kinds of things. When you talk about red, you have blood and violence. When you talk about yellow, you have jealousy. And you see white means purity. So again, it's gives this description gives us an impressionistic view of what actually happens. So there is symbolism, and symbolism is impressionistic, not realistic. Okay, yeah, this is basically it. We're going to stop on this note, and the next part of the session, like we agreed, is going to be talking about To Build a Fire by Jack London. We're going to talk about Jack London himself, and we'll talk about his short story and see. We're going to look very closely at especially the setting and how it is created, and its different roles, if any, in the short story. Thank you very much, and see you again.